You're listening to the Everyday Astrology Podcast. I'm Hilary Scott, your astrologer, and I'm here to bring you the current planetary conditions. So we are at I guess it's the exact day of the lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And Scorpio is a powerful transition maker and is always transforming and sort of digging up the roots of things and making sure that we see the truth. Even if you don't want to, the Scorpio energy has a way of, shocking people with the truth even. So the lunar eclipse is a total lunar eclipse at 9:14 Pacific Standard Time. And you can see it from about 6 until I think after midnight, about a 6-hour period. If you can see it, if the sky is clear. And it's a very, eclipses are powerful. Powerful things happen during eclipses. Shocking things happen during eclipses. And it's a portal of time that happens, they're 2 weeks apart, and we usually have 2, sometimes 4 of them a year, or usually 4, sometimes more, depending. And basically, on the 30th, we had, the last time I was here talking, we had the solar eclipse in Taurus, and now we're having the closing eclipse to that pair, that opposition pair, Taurus and Scorpio, today. So this lunar eclipse is, it's a south node eclipse, so it portends endings and the closing of chapters and wrapping things up. But at the same time, it's also the birth of something new. So it's a tricky time because endings are looming and also there's beginnings. But there is like a matter of sort of things one must do to prepare for things to be ended. So that's the kind of stuff that you might be facing or focusing on. Also sort of like dredging up emotional past information, maybe like wounds that were buried, pain that you had that you stuffed. Scorpio's not good about emotional ambiguity or repression or anything superficial. It only functions happily in the real nitty-gritty dark forces of life. Like dark in that, like the yin and the yang, the dark and the light are one, and they're both sides to the same coin sort of thing. So not to say that the dark stuff is always the bad stuff. Often it is the bad stuff, but it is still part of life, and we all are here walking in life and need to experience it. So if it hits you anywhere very specifically, then you're going to obviously feel it a lot more than someone who isn't directly affected through the geometry of their own chart. So I'm sure you'll know. There's no way you're going to miss it if it is affecting you personally. When we had the solar eclipse in Taurus 2 weeks ago, often that's sort of like, the opening of the portal of change. So things go down in that 2-week period that once you get through, things are never the same. And, often it can be wonderful things. Often it can be terrible things. It just really depends on kind of what you came here to experience and how that's all going to play out for you. So do keep in mind that it is a very powerful time. We also have Mercury retrograde. Jupiter just went into Aries, which is very different. On the 10th, Jupiter moved into Aries. And that's like out of kind of in the sign of Pisces, it operates in a much more maybe kind of like philosophical, spiritual, otherworldly kind of awareness way. But going into Aries, it can kind of like get moving and be free. And because Aries energy is very sort of impetuous and fast acting and, doesn't thwart, whereas Piscean energy can be very kind of muddled and confused and happier to not act than to act. So this is a very different feel starting on Tuesday the 10th. And that same day, Mercury is going retrograde. So we're in the middle of a Mercury retrograde, in the middle of an eclipse portal. We're having big changes with like Jupiter moving into Aries. You're going to feel that. What else do we have here that's very notable? The actual day of the eclipse on the 15th is, well, it's got some heavy aspects. Saturn Square the Sun is really heavy. It can be very thwarting, and I always just, thwarting is just like the perfect word. Like you're trying to do something and it's like, nope, can't do that. There's just that disciplinary, withholding, sometimes cold, even icy energy of Saturn. Very like, well, this is the way it is kind of thing. And you gotta meet your responsibilities. And often, if we can lean into whatever is our responsibility, then we get the benefits of Saturn, which is stability and security and sort of predictability, maybe a little bit, as much as possible in life. But if we like don't lean into our responsibilities, then we're like, always have the bill guy calling, and there's this constant sense of sort of not, just not like being able to rest or trust or relax, that sort of thing. So it is squaring the sun, and the sun right now is in Taurus. And so it's this very not wanting to change energy, but Saturn is coming in and being like, well, things need to change. Whatever that may be for whoever it is, things are going to be changing. And you better live at, like, it's like karma coming home to roost sort of thing. And it's better always to pay our karma with grace and humility and patience when we find ourselves in an impossible situation where it feels super unfair and you don't understand why this would happen to you. You've got to know that there's some level of soul growth and learning, and coming from that perspective that you chose the responsibility of this specific experience, then you kind of like own the karma, and then you can neutralize the situation and move into a state of grace. So there is all that sort of wisdom stuff with the Saturn Square Sun energy, but also it can be very stressful. Like, you'll probably feel it somewhere, or our world will definitely be feeling it somewhere. And also with the Chiron and Venus connected in a conjunction, so they're sharing the same space, it's very, it could be very painful. There could be a lot of like emotional stuff coming up, a lot of triggers, maybe even, but in a way that's healing. Like, so you can feel the things you feel, maybe even like validate stuff you knew all along, like things you always knew, but could never sort of articulate or verbalize or express in some way. Now there's sort of words for what you knew, and there's understanding and healing that can come from the understanding. So it's, even though it can be very difficult and painful, there's always this, like, there's healing happening. And even if it's painful to feel what you need to feel, you can't heal what you can't feel. So just know whatever's coming up has been stuck there for a while, and it needs to be released and felt and honored inside of you. So if you're going through something hard, just keep that in mind. Keep yourself kind of grounded in that. Also, there's this unexpected element to the Uranus opposite this moon. There's like, Uranus is always kind of surprising us with things that we didn't expect. And it's equally good things as it is bad things. So the more you are a changeable, adapting human, and always reaching and growing and stretching and using your human life for all that it's worth, then the less you have to worry about influences like Uranus coming in and shocking the shit out of you. Generally, like, it's sort of like it ping pongs you into a better situation or a new dynamic or something, especially if you're somebody who's into growing and changing. If you happen to be someone who is like kind of stuck and fixed, then you find the Uranian energy very stressful. and like you'll end up feeling like you're going through a turmoil or a whirlwind, or you're shocked, and then you're going to have to process and adapt because you're forced to. So keep that in mind. It's always better to lean in to the changes. There's also Saturn, not Saturn, the sun is sextiling Neptune that day. So even though there's this really hard stuff going on, there's also this there's this spiritualizing of everything, sort of like there's this really harsh sort of material reality, but then there's dematerializing, and the world that the unseen world, and the magic and the synchronicity and all that like amazing stuff that makes you know that you're protected and you're not alone, and that there's some greater benevolent force that's got your back, and you know that because there's magic happening around you, and there's coincidences and synchronicities and like fortunate events, and you feel gratitude in your heart, and like that grateful feeling and that blessed feeling comes with the Neptunian energy. And gratitude is the attitude that brings you more wonderful things in your life. So that is like, even though things might be hard, you might actually be feeling a great deal of like gratitude, which is super nice. And there's a trine with Mars that day too, on actually today. I'm talking today. I've had a huge sort of crisis, like portal change going on in my own life, and it's too current to really talk about it because I don't want to like burst into tears while I'm doing this. But once I'm processed and I've got it all sorted, I will definitely share the experience. But today is a big day, and it will affect us. You know, you'll see the kind of consequences and the outcomes of this for the next 6 months. There is Mars connected to this energy in a trine that gives you the juice to adapt and accommodate and do what you need to do what you need to get done to process and make it all work. And then Saturn there too is like the hard part, right? The sad part, the grief, the sorrow, things that you know, that you don't want to let go of, or you're not ready to relinquish, or there's just some kind of major burden or awareness of the sort of heaviness of life. But we also, moving on in the day, have a trine to Neptune. And that Neptunian energy, again, is spiritualizing the whole thing for us and making us be able to see the spirituality of it all, and maybe even understand the deep karma, or maybe you or can even see like the energy going back into your lineage with all the Saturnian energy. It can have to do with like family karma and your sort of the bones of things, you know. So there is an ability for us to understand it from a really much higher, more spiritual perspective, which is such a blessing, because when you can kind of comprehend something and you can understand it and you're not left confused and muddled and stuff, then you can transform and change and move on and let the grief clear the way instead of, you know, being all blocked up in your body. You can just let it out. There's this sort of that same, I think I talked about it last time, is there's like, or time before, that there's like a sweetness to the sorrow or the sadness. There's like, it's, you know, there's a beauty in the sadness because it honors how much something was worth to you and the love that was involved. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope that gives you some information about what this moon is like. Also, don't forget Mercury is retrograde for the next, I think, to the beginning of June, the first week of June. So be careful signing contracts. Be careful, you know, keep your like eyes and ears and awareness that you don't have all the information yet because of the Mercury retrograde. So you can't make really clear commitments or decisions. Often when you try to during Mercury retrograde, things backfire and you don't have all the information. So keep that in mind and don't be in a rush, and be willing to review and redo and reorganize and rework whatever is coming up for you right now. And that's it. I wish you all the best in this kind of amazing and complicated and transformative time we're living in. And I hope that you're able to use this energy to sort of gently move you into the life that is going to bring you the most joy and love and everything you need. So thank you so much for listening, and many bright blessings of all kinds of wonderful